Morning. I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed doing the webinar for the Women's Climbing Symposium last night, because really the questions were absolutely fantastic, and it's quite hard as a presenter because you can't really see people's faces, and it would have been nice to answer the questions as I went along, but I knew I'd get super distracted if I tried to do that. So thanks for holding on to your questions to the end. I'm a little bit croaky still this morning, but there was a couple of questions that really I think I felt like I wanted to expand on a bit more the answers today. They were kind of going around in my head in last night and then this morning. So they're kind of related in a way. So the first question was from someone, and I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but it was around, how do you kind of go into like a bouldering wall and feel confident and, kind of quieten that inner self-talk when everyone in there seems to be younger and skinnier and fitter and all the rest of it. And I think this is something that we can all actually help with. So I think that's the first important thing to say. So a lot of people don't feel intimidated, some people do. I remember going about 20 years ago now when I moved back to North Wales, going to the old Beacon, and they had their a kind of like in the back of the bouldering area, there was like a tunnel. So it's like kind of two overhanging walls. It's quite small, closed in, kind of cave-like. And invariably there'd be like a group of 6 people in there, and that would make it feel very, very small. And as someone who is kind of new to the area, new to bouldering, it did feel really quite intimidating to kind of muscle my way in there and say, I want to have a go on that problem, when they all looked really hard to me and I wasn't sure where to start. But I really remember the people who made a big difference. So there were some guys, there were some women, and they were just really friendly and smiled and, said like, well done if I was trying something, said hi, passed the time of day. So the first thing I would say is, like if you're really comfortable and you've been in your area a long time, you know everyone at the wall, you're exactly the sort of person that people need to be welcoming. Okay, so if you notice somebody new who looks uncertain, a bit unsure, then say hi, ask them what problem they're trying. I don't know, ask them anything really, but just be welcoming, be warm, smile, make them feel at home, because that is so important, particularly for people who feel like they don't fit in some way or don't meet that typical sort of stereotype of what a climber looks like or should be like, or maybe they just feel like they're not yet climbing hard enough to be in there. So that's a part of it. But I guess if you're the person who's going in there and you feel intimidated, what I would say is, firstly, try not to go in there apologetically. So, stand tall, shoulders back, go in there and smile and say hello yourself, okay? Most people are really friendly. They're just kind of absorbed in what they're doing, so that they're not going to notice necessarily if you're there and not sure if you can come in or not. Secondly, like, don't apologize for yourself. So don't say, oh, I'm sorry, could I just, or can I just try this problem? Just go in there and say, are you on that problem? Okay, great, I'll take a turn then, thanks. So try to sort of have that confident language around it. Try not to apologize for yourself. And then also some of the strategies we talked about earlier are really important. So I think this is where the CBT reframing and the kind of downward arrow techniques come into their own. If you've pre-prepared this, if you know that you are going to find it a bit tricky to walk into that scenario, then working through that reframing technique can be quite useful, so that you start to cast a bit of doubt on it. And also, I would say it's a great opportunity for a behavioural experiment. Now, behavioural experiments feature large in both CBT and ACT, which I talked about last night. And they're ways of testing out our assumptions or our hypotheses. So if I am thinking, if I go in there, everyone's going to look at me and they're going to think, why is she in here? I want to try and test out that. So number one, does everyone look at me when I go in? Or do some people look at me and some people ignore me? Secondly, I might have a chat to them and try and, ask them, like, who normally climbs in here? Is it just hard climbers who come in here, or can anyone come in? So I might just try and ask it that. So behavioural experiments are fantastic ways of getting some data, some evidence about what you actually think. The related point to this is, I think it's about kind of assertiveness and feeling like we have rights as climbers. And I've seen this apply way more to women than men, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect men as well. So the second question that I felt like I didn't give a great answer to last night, because it caught me off guard a bit, is what do you do when you have still got those very critical voices in your mind and they're still present in your life? Okay, so I guess here, yeah, it's a really tricky one because relationships are complicated. But I would be thinking about a number of different things. And one is, you know, is this relationship helping me? Is the way I am in this relationship helping me? Is it moving me towards what I want for myself or away from what I want for myself? If your climbing partner, you know, maybe they're your life partner as well, if they are being super critical of you, often it's not because they necessarily mean to, but the impact, it doesn't matter why they're doing it, the impact is the same. And so the first port of call, I guess, is always to try to talk to them about that. And I'd be thinking about saying things like, not you make me feel, but like, when you say this, I feel like that. Okay, so you're trying to explain how it impacts on you. And some people have been completely unaware. It's like a habit they've picked up probably from their own background and childhood or whatever, and they're just kind of repeating things, or repeating things they might say to themselves and so on. It might be that they really want you to improve and they think they're encouraging you, but you're actually finding it's really knocking your confidence. So that's always the first port of call. To try to talk to them and just be honest. So I guess the other thing then is to think about, well, if you're not getting anywhere with that approach, to think about all the whys of the relationship and what is important to you, what are your values like, you know, what's at the heart of you, what's important to you. Is that relationship really meeting your needs, I guess? And it's a really hard question to ask yourself because nothing is sort of black and white. But I have worked with quite a lot of people where their relationship with their climbing partner is really tricky and it's not helping their climbing. So you've got a number of options there. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily leave the relationship because maybe it's great outside of climbing, but maybe as a climbing partnership, it's just not working. And maybe looking for someone to do the kind of the harder climbing or the ones where you want to test yourself or you want to be able to feel okay about having a wobble, for example, that might need to happen with someone else and not with your partner. So I'm not suggesting everyone like leaves their partners, but what I'm saying is, you know, if this isn't working, then you need to address it because you are entitled to climb and to have a good time climbing and to do climbing in the way that works for you. And I think that's such an important thing to remember. There's something about kind of culturally, I think sometimes we can end up thinking that there's a way we should be doing it, that we kind of have to be climbing super hard, we have to be leading all the time, we have to be doing it in a particular way in order to have the right to say how we want it to be. And I think that's really not true. We need to question that. A beginner, a nervous climber, somebody who only climbs VDIF has equal merit as a person, equal rights as a person, equal rights as a climber, as somebody who climbs A to A, for example. So I would say just watch. If you identify with not being such a great climber and you've noticed that you would tend to put the needs of the harder climber first, how is that working for you in your climbing? Have a think about that. It kind of, those two things I think really relate to feeling like you can step into that climbing space and be the climber to climb in the way that you need to get the best out of your climbing. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Try to notice when you are in some ways making yourself smaller, less visible, less offensive in some way, or deferring to the other person, and notice if that's become a pattern for you. And that's something that you might need some help unpicking by a therapist or something. But I think it's really worth noticing because it doesn't have to be like that. So part of what we talked about yesterday was unpacking some of those assumptions. And there might be some assumptions in there as well that are feeding your negative self-talk that are around who gets to choose the route, who gets to choose where we go, who goes first, who has the most rights as a climber, essentially. So try and unpick that a little bit. Okay, I hope that makes sense and has added a little bit to what I was saying last night. My throat is still really sore, but I had such a great time and I hope you really enjoyed it. I'm super happy if you want to email through questions or message me or whatever. If there's something I didn't get to last night, I'm really happy to try and give it a go, via email or whatever. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.